Hello and welcome back to my Muppet Hands. So this part sounds different because I'm recording this in real time instead of recording it in a voiceover later. Because I noticed when I'm talking about my art supplies, when I'm like bringing them out, I do these cute little shots where I show them to you guys, and then I don't have time to say the narration because I speed it up and I go too fast. So we're gonna try something different today. So today I'm going to be doing a collaboration with my wife.
Hi!
That's my wife, who usually hangs out in my videos. So in all of my videos, just imagine the ambiance of my wife is in the background.
I'm just over here eating a bagel.
Yeah, so if you want to join her for the ARG, please put your bagel in your mouth now. And yeah, my wife drew this, and I love it, and it's really cool. So she transferred it to a piece of watercolor board for me, and we're gonna paint this today. This is a crescent artboard. I used this to do a really large painting for my dad for Christmas this year. Well, it was for my mom. My dad commissioned me. Long story short, it was huge, and it's a good artboard. I like it. It's watercolor, paper art board. It's not really paper, huh? Anyway, I'll be using this, and I really like my wife's art style. It reminds me of the artist Heslin that I like a lot, and she did this cool surrealist thing because she's been looking into Art Nouveau. But people that aren't Alphonse Mucha. Who is this by?
I was inspired by Jessie M. King.
Jessie M. King. So go look her art up, and she's cool, and I'm putting some on the screen right now. Do that, future Diana, who's editing this. So yeah, my first challenge with this is I'm going to try to paint an aurora in the background, and I've never done that before. So I've printed off a bunch of reference pictures, and I did do some practice ones this week, and those came out bad. So I've decided I know how to do it now, and we're just going to go for it. So what supplies will we be using today? So you guys get to meet my main palette today, and this is actually, the palette itself is a $10 palette of crappy watercolors from Giorgione, like the macaroon color system. Maybe the watercolors are fine. I didn't like them. And I bought it because I liked the palette specifically. I got it on Alibaba at the beginning of the pandemic, and it took like 6 months to get here because, you know, COVID. So let me show you what's inside. It comes with this little transparent mixing tray, which I really like because when I'm working, I can check a color mix. Oh, hello, Haku. He's here now. Yep, you're gonna just walk through? Okay. Anyway, you mix the color, you can kind of just slap it on there and see if it works, but it also has a white base, so if it's on there, you don't have to do that. I filled it with my own paints. I removed all of the ones that were in there. Has a little sponge that I don't use. It has a little brush that's actually better than I was expecting it to be. I put this in here. This is masking fluid. You can see I already masked this. And it's got this little brush, which I might end up using today for details, but I have my regular brushes here, so we'll see. And yeah, these are mostly Paul Rubens and Daniel Smith paints. I have a little swatch card. I labeled them in the bottom right if they're Paul Rubens or Daniel Smith, and have their color names and numbers so that I can refill it without putting the wrong color in. So this is my main palette. I haven't used it in a while because I've been using that Stort Semple one for so long. So I'm excited to get into this again. The second thing we will be using is this palette, which is the Derwent Inktense palette, which I actually don't use all that often. I used it for Inktober in 2019, where I did a whole series of a Pokemon trainer going on their journey, which was very fun, and I'd like to do again someday. But this is a big mess inside. This is me after I've tried to clean it. Like, it's just like this, because these watercolor pans are more like India ink, and they are permanent once you lay them down. So for the first while on the plastic, it did come up, and then over time it's just stained super bad. And I'm using specifically the black in this set because, as I mentioned in a previous video, I don't usually use black, but I want a black for the Skyline here that isn't going to run into the other colors. So I'm going to lay that down with a permanent medium so that it stays fixed. And I don't want it to be as dark as actual India ink. And let's see, the third thing, as always, I will be using my colored pencils. So I just have like my heavy rotation pencils here. I might end up having to go get more. We'll see. And I have one other art supply that I'll probably do a review for in a little bit here, but I haven't yet. I did film my swatch video for it. Uh-oh, well, my desk is a mess now. that's just what it looks like now. These are oil pastels and they are water soluble, and these are from Crayola actually, and these kind of behave like gouache, and the only gouache I have right now that's open is acrylic gouache, which is also a permanent medium. It doesn't lift. So these are my fail-safe. If I screw up the Aurora, I can use this white and maybe some of these greens to make it less bad. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, those are the art supplies I will be using today. Let's get into it. And I'm going to switch over to my voiceover now so that the current me can listen to a podcast. So guess what else the past then current me was doing? Forgetting to turn on the camera. So I forgot to record the first part of this painting. The good news is it probably wouldn't have been all that interesting to watch because mostly it was putting a lot of water on this board and then a very light wash of a turquoise color onto it. So that's what you missed. Also, sorry for this big ugly glare on it. I'm not used to working under these lights with a wet canvas. Anyway, so I decided to be a little bit looser on this than I normally am, working wet into wet. Normally when I work with watercolor, I try to limit moisture because, okay, let me back up. So watercolor has a reputation, as I'm sure you know, for being difficult to work with and finicky because it's a little unpredictable. The reason for that is because watercolor pigment is going to go wherever there is more water. It's just going to flow through the path of least resistance, and that is always going to be a wet area over a dry area. So if you're working next to a dry area, your watercolors won't bleed. But sometimes it's hard to tell if something's totally dry, or if you're impatient like me, you just don't care, and we'll see the consequences of those actions later in this very painting. Spoilers, I guess. So challenge for me here is that in order to get these really soft gradients that you need to paint the Northern Lights, I needed to work wet into wet, which is why, as I mentioned, I already did this twice and both of them were failures. And then I just decided to jump right into this because I'm impatient, so here we are. I do think the final result comes out pretty good. There are some things I'd change. Oh, look, see, my paint is bleeding into wet paint because I didn't wait for it to dry because of hubris. So, you know, that's just my story. I will go back in and fix that later in the painting. But watch as I continually do it over and over again for the next couple seconds. I might be done by now because I think this area was dry when I started working into it. Yeah, thank goodness. Whew. There are areas of this video that I actually just went ahead and cut out because they were frustrating to watch back for me, and also because I thought you guys would be frustrated. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. One of those things is, if you looked at the thumbnail, I had a hard time with the masking fluid, but we'll get to that later. So anyway, I really like these cool little cityscape skylines that my wife put down here. I ended up to differentiate them, trying to make the one in the foreground significantly darker, because I figured if the sunset is behind both of them, the sun would be hitting the ones in the back first. So yeah, you'll see me come back and rework this area a couple of different times because this pigment that I'm working with in the Derwent Inktense pans, it goes down a lot darker than it dries, so I have to keep going back and reworking that area. That's true of a lot of pigments, but I find with that particular set I have that problem a lot actually, which is why I don't really use it that often. This is the fun part where I'm actually going in with like my indigos and my dark colors and making bold choices instead of just working in soft gradients the entire painting. I really like it when I start getting towards heavier pigments when I work in paintings. Like doing the underlayers is not really that satisfying for me, but when I start getting to this part, I'm having a blast. The brush I'm using here, by the way, I believe that's called a mop brush. It holds a ton of water, and if you're going to try to do something like this, or you're just a big wet-on-wet fan, or would like to become a wet-on-wet fan, I recommend picking up one of those as one of your good brushes. Like, basically, how I bought my brushes, I bought a set of Royal and Langnickel brushes from Michaels that were meant for watercolor. I believe they might have said mixed media, but watercolor was on the package. They're like $6 or $7. They're not the cheapest brushes you can buy, but they're also way cheaper than, you know, proper watercolor brushes. I mean, I have brushes I've spent over $15 on just one brush. So that was kind of my starter set of brushes, and I still use those. You'll see a couple of them pop up in this painting. And then I would supplement your brushes with a couple of brushes from a nicer brand that are going to be your, like, basically the first set is your Swiss Army knives. That is your set of general use brushes, and then you're going to get stuff for like details and very specific jobs. So one of those is that mop brush. It's good for when you need a lot of water in a large area very quickly and you don't want it to dry before you're done. The brush that's actually between the palette and the painting on the screen right now, that's a Mimik round brush in size 1 or 2. Basically get a nice round brush in size 1 or 2, and that will save you a lot of hassle. I really like the Mimik ones, and I believe you can get that one pretty cheaply on Jerry's Artorama. They have like a sample pack for the brushes, and you can get that one by itself or like a little pack of brushes for like $5. Usually those brushes are they're cheaper than real hair brushes. Like Mimik is referring to the fact that they're imitation squirrel and sable hair, but they are the nicest brushes I currently own. So yeah, I definitely recommend that brand. Jerry's Artorama has them. You can usually find coupons for that website as well. And my other brushes are kind of just an assortment from Michael's. I think I have some Winsor, Newton, and Princeton ones in there. This is the Royal and Langnickel one I mentioned, by the way. This is from that set. It had like a little pink backing card, and I was drawn to that because I like pink, if you couldn't tell from my pink Muppet hands and my pink desk and my pink palette and all of the pink stickers I put on things. Yeah, I'm not hard to read. Anyway, so working more on this skyline, you'll see that I put in a pencil outline around the edges of it with a Faber-Castell pencil, which is an oil pencil like a Prismacolor would be. That's an oil-based lead, I guess. It's not lead at all, but the core of it is oil-based. And so I used that to kind of repel the water from the area. That's not going to work with heavy washes, but worked well enough here. So back into the juicy colors where I get to go darker. I should never say juicy again, probably. I don't like that word. I don't know why. It just feels weird anyway. So back up to the Aurora. I'm trying to shape it out right now. The key with this for me was turning down my too much gene and making myself stop before I over darkened the main part of the Aurora. That was my problem when I was working on it in my sketchbook, when I was doing the practices, is I kept blending, and I just did it right there, my dark blues into the Aurora on the bottom by accident. I would be like trying to make it look more gradual or trying to blend down the color, and I just was going way too hard, and I was pulling it all the way down, and then it just kind of didn't look like, it kind of looked more like a Milky Way or like a big muddy mess of nothing. So I watched a couple tutorials before I started here. I could link some of them in the description below. Maybe I'll make a little playlist. And you can learn how to draw the Northern Lights so that you can feel superior to me, because I did an okay job here. I didn't end up having to use the oil pastels on this one. I kind of used it on one area, but I cut that footage out because it had absolutely no effect. So later on, the video will end before I ever use those. Just a spoiler alert again. Gosh, I'm spoiling everything in this video. Jeez, there's not even going to be any surprises left. Next thing I'm going to tell you that I paint until the end of the video. Whoa! Anyway, I really enjoyed making this little sun gradient too. One of my reference pictures had a little sun gradient in the corner. I mean, it was a real picture, so I guess it is a gradient, but nature made it. Good for you, nature. But I did not actually know that you can see the Northern Lights if there is any sun in the sky, so that was pretty cool to learn. If you live somewhere where the Northern Lights are visible, is that true, or was that like a fun camera trick? Let me know in the comments below. I actually did see the Northern Lights once as a very small child. I lived in New Jersey at that time, and they came down far enough south. I don't actually know how that works. I know they didn't move there, but they were visible pretty far south for the Northern Lights, but I was like 7 and I don't remember it very well. Most of what I remember from being 7 is Pokemon based, which is also just true of most of my memories. Most of them have to do with Pokemon. It took me 2 or 3 years to learn my wife's phone number, but I'm pretty sure I still know the names of all 870 something Pokemon. Feel free to roast me about that in the comments below. It's good for the algorithm. Anyway, let's get back to talking about the painting, not to. So here comes the masking fluid disaster to which I alluded earlier. I don't know if it's a problem with this fluid, if this fluid and this board don't get along, or if maybe I let the masking fluid set for too long, but you can see there I ripped up a big chunk of the board underneath that star. It was supposed to be 4-pointed, and now it's got an extra, so we're gonna have to really improvise, adapt, and overcome on this one. The pigment on my city skyline also came up when I was trying to take off the masking fluid, so that was a bummer, especially because I'm like, I use this pigment because it doesn't come up. It's like India ink. Just kidding. I managed to erase it by trying to take off masking fluid, so I'll be repainting that shortly in a bit. I cut most of that out because y'all don't need to watch me do that twice. So here comes the hero of the day. It's a white gel pen, and I feel like the theme of this video is you can fix any art screw up if you have enough determination and enough white gel pens and colored pencils. I mean, I could have like cut out paper and put that over it too. You can really use a lot of tools to fix errors, especially when those errors are like areas that needed to be white. Like I could have cut out some stars, I could have cut out the little circle on the clock tower there and done it again, but I just went over it over and over again with a white gel pen until I was able to get it to look clear. So yeah, here's me repainting the city skyline again. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time I had done it by this point, and I was getting kind of frustrated. And I was a lot less careful with the windows and stuff this time. Well, obviously there was no masking fluid on it this time, so I resolved to just go back in with the white gel pen and go back over it. So, you know, if you ever screw up your artwork, don't get discouraged. Just get a white gel pen and pray to the gods of art that you have the patience to fix it. I really find you can fix almost anything in traditional art. You just have to have the right mindset. You have to have a can-do attitude and just the determination that nothing is going to stand between you and not having to do this painting again. Because I didn't want to. Plus, this was like a $2 piece of artboard. I was like, I'm not gonna waste this piece of artboard because I screwed up with the masking fluid. Maybe, I don't know if it was user error or if it was the masking fluid's fault. I kind of want to blame the masking fluid, but I also never use masking fluid, so it was probably my fault. Anyway, but as you can see, we've overcome it at this point, so yeah. I enjoyed the satisfaction of overcoming the gods trying to nerf me by ripping my canvas apart. It's not really a canvas, but by ripping my board apart. Nothing can stop me now. I'm going back in with the white gel pen again. That will not be the last time you see it on this piece. And that star that I'm working on right now is actually where I tried to go in with the oil pastels later, and nothing happened. So I just ended up fixing it in post, and in person it doesn't actually even look that visible that there is a rip there. So yeah, no one will ever know, except for you. You know my secrets. So yeah, pretty much the rest of this video, it's a lot of touching up, a lot of colored pencil going in and darkening areas up. I was having trouble getting my dark blue paints, like my indigos, to come out as dark as I wanted them to. So that was weird, coming back to these paints where I was like, oh yeah, I love my indigos in that set. I'm so excited. And then I was having issues. I think just because I had so much water on the board for most of this painting. So I ended up going in with colored pencils. So my first layer was getting these little like wispy lights that the Northern Lights characteristically have in there. And I really encourage all of you all the time to do mixed media, even if it's just add colored pencils to stuff, because colored pencils, I hate doing whole art pieces with them so much, but doing details with them, they just can't be beat. They're the best. Don't bother with other tools. Just buy a bunch of colored pencils. No one will ever stop you. Specifically, like a white one, an indigo one, a sepia one, and a black one. That's pretty much the main ones I use. So get those. Good job, team. I wish I were affiliated with places so that I could give you guys fun affiliate links, but I'm not a real YouTuber yet, so for now you just have my recommendations. I really hope you guys don't hate this very stream of consciousness style of narration, because I refuse to write scripts, so if you hate it, let me know that in the comments too, and I will try to stay more on topic, or if you have questions that you would like me to answer in future videos, let me know. This video didn't have a specific theme of like being a review, so I just kind of wanted to talk about how these art supplies work and how they work together and my challenges and struggles. So now you know about them so you can avoid them. I should have divided up those two auroras more. I don't like how they touch in the middle, but it's too late now. I mean, it's not. The painting's behind me. I guess I could fix it, but I'm not going to before this video goes up. So y'all just have to deal with looking at that. And that's pretty much it for this one. Just, you know, added in a few more shadows and we're done. Check it out. So you'll be able to get this as a print in my description or see it on my DeviantArt account because it's 2005. Like and subscribe for more rambling and wife. And my wife did a good job on this and I did my best. Thank you for coming. I'll see you next time. Hit the bell if you want your YouTube to tell you every time I upload immediately. And Kinsey says hi.